Chapter 4 The World's Worst Cook. I began to read again. He was describing his first days in the restaurant kitchen.
In Abbu's kitchen, you start at the bottom. So for the last 2 weeks, all I have done is chop onions, peel vegetables, grind masala and stir the dal. In this job, I have a companion, a boy called Rajjo. I had heard about him from Abbu. His father was one of Abbu's best cooks. But the man drank too much and ultimately the liquor killed him. So Rajjo has had to leave school at 14 and join the kitchen. There are 3 waiters and 5 men working in the kitchen. 2 cooks, a masalchi who grinds the masala, and 2 men who spend all day washing the pots, pans and dishes. As Rajjo and I are apprentices, we are ordered about by them all day, but at least they speak politely to me. Rajjo gets the worst of their tongue. Today I was peeling garlic when I heard one of the cooks, a real bully named Jamaluddin, begin to yell at Rajjo about how he had cut the pumpkins too big. I couldn't take it anymore and went up to Jamal and said, "You should have shown him how you want it cut. You are supposed to teach him. Rajjo doesn't know." Jamal started at me and I knew what he was thinking. Then he stopped himself, probably fearing that I would go and complain to Abbu.
"You stay out of this, Hasnu,"
he muttered angrily as Rajjo gave me a grateful smile. I sat up. So he was called Hasnu. I stopped reading and went in search of Dadaji, who was in the garden watering the flower beds. "Dadaji, did you know anyone named Hasnu who owned a restaurant in the 1960s?
"The diary again, eh?"
It's really interesting."
Hasnu sounds like a pet name that would probably be short for Hassan. I knew a few Hassans. It's a common name.
He thought for a while.
There was Hassan Mirza, who taught economics, and Tawfiq Hassan, who had a shoe shop.
Then he added,
They are both dead.
I went back to reading Hasnu's diary. He found the work boring, and there was always his father looking over his shoulders and criticizing what he was doing. He had even made a list of some of his comments on one page.
"You're holding the knife wrong. I said coriander, not cumin. Use your eyes, Hassan."
It was exactly like my dad trying to teach me maths or physics. Hasnu clearly found the kitchen a deeply puzzling place full of mysterious stuff in jars and bottles. On one page, he made careful note of what various lentils looked like, because he clearly mixed up the dals. The smell of the masala cupboard gave him a headache, and he wrote in one place,
What's the point of slaving over a hot tawa for hours and then watch it get eaten in minutes? I was wasting my time.
As I read on, I noticed that Hasnu and Rajjo had become good friends. At one place, Hasnu wrote,
I would have gone mad in that hellish place if Rajjo hadn't been there beside me.
Then there was an entry dated 6 months later, and it began,
Today, Abbu allowed Rajjo and me to cook our first dish.
Oh, this sounds like the pre-boards in cookery school. Hasnu's Abbu said it was going to be a test and the boys would each cook a basic mutton korma and the kitchen staff would eat it for lunch. I had memorized the recipe and began by chopping the onions, peeling the garlic, grinding the ginger and soaking the almonds. Then I made the masala with cumin, coriander, turmeric, chili powder, cloves. And all the while the other cooks were wandering around us, joking about Rajjo and me. Jamal was busy making the bread called sheermal, and as he kneaded the flour, he yelled at Rampyare, who was stirring the Rogan Josh. Are Ramu, do you think we'll get any lunch today? Rampyare laughed and called back,
Shall I make some extra dal?
I sweated over the onions and acted as if I hadn't heard, but Rajjo wasn't the one to keep quiet. He turned and grinned at them. "You'll lick your fingers eating my korma. Just wait and see." And the whole kitchen, even Abbu, laughed. I read on, absently wondering what the recipe of this mutton korma was. I had read quite a few variations in cookbooks. Hasnu must have cooked in ghee. Did he use ground poppy seeds or khoya? All he wrote about was how Rajjo was humming happily as he cooked. But he just felt nervous and anxious, and things began to go wrong pretty quickly. As he began to fry the onions and garlic, the mixture began to stick to the bottom of the kadhai and burn. In panic, he poured in some ghee. But he must have added too much because now everything was sort of floating about in it. His father had told him that the masala was supposed to look golden, but this looked brownish-grey instead. As he panicked even more, one disaster followed another. He forgot to add the curd, and when he did, it turned into lumps. Then the meat just wouldn't soften, and he kept adding water. Boy, this chap was a total culinary idiot. Late in the afternoon, once the restaurant had closed, the kitchen staff sat down to lunch, and Hasnu and Rajjo served the dishes they had cooked. His Abbu took one bite of Hasnu's cooking, chewed and pronounced his verdict.
"You burnt the masala. The poppy seeds have been ground too coarsely. The meat is half done, and there is too much ghee."
Then he tasted Rajjo's dish and said,
This is much better. You have done well, Rajab. Maybe a little more garlic, but this is fine."
Then he turned to his son and took off.
"I taught you this dish so carefully. You are the son of Mirza Ali and belong to a family of Khandani chefs."
As Hasnu stood there shaking, he began to shout,
"You, Hassan, are a shame on our family, and you are the worst cook in the world."
Then Hasnu had written in Hindi exactly what his father said. "Dunya ka sabse bekar bawarchi." As the kitchen went absolutely silent, Hasnu turned and left the restaurant. He wasn't going to let them see the tears in his eyes. Hasnu wrote, "So I am a failure and a disappointment to Abbu. It's a mystery to me. I did exactly what he taught me, and even then I failed. That's the difference between Rajjo and me. He enjoys the work that I hate. How can I explain that to Abbu? That I love books, I love words, poetry, novels, and one day I want to write. I don't want to spend the rest of my life slaving over a kitchen stove. I have to escape before Abbu kills my dreams." Then with a flourish, he had signed at the bottom of the page, "Hassan Ali, Bekar Bawarchi."
From the Diary of the World's Worst Cook by Subhadra Sen Gupta, adapted. Apprentices. Young persons who work for an employer for a fixed period of time in order to learn the particular skills needed in that job. Criticizing. Saying what's wrong about somebody or something, finding fault. Slaving. Working very hard. Disaster. An event or situation that has bad consequences. Culinary. Related to cooking or food. Verdict. An opinion or judgment given about something after it has been tested or given careful consideration. Coarsely, here, into large and roughly shaped pieces. With a flourish, in a way that is intended to draw attention.